I'm making my guest's favorite drink.
You picked a mojito, Vesper Martini,
The House of Balloons cocktail.
Nice and crisp.
Join me and some of the world's greatest writers.
multi-award-winning author of 5 novels, best-selling author of more than 20 books, the Pulitzer Prize, among many other awards. Welcome to Dedicated. Today we're with the great Michael Connelly. He is world famous for his Lincoln Lawyer and Bosch novels. And coincidentally, I have had about 5 conversations recently with top authors who have all named Michael Connelly as the guy they're reading. He is doing it the best of anyone out there. So I think the best thing I can say by way of introduction, Michael, is that you are winning the votes of your peers.
That's amazing to hear, and I'm glad to be here to hear it.
It's great to have you here. The latest is The Proving Ground, which I loved. I actually got to read it. This made me feel a little bit more like Scorsese or something. I read it off my own printer, and it's an awesome book. I totally loved it.
Thank you.
And our drink today is going to be the Old Fashioned, which I'll get to work on here. This is how you end the day after a hard day of writing?
Preferably, yeah. Doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened on occasion, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I know you are from Philly. We were just talking about a little bit there. So you and I have that in common.
Yeah. I mean, I left there when I was 12, but I was torn last week when the Dodgers were playing the Phillies.
Uh-huh.
I thought, well, whoever wins, I'm with them.
Right. Yeah. So I know you left Philly when you were around 12 and went to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And then I read this crazy story that I think when you were, so you're down there in like the Cape Canaveral days, watching that sort of like peak space shuttle time, I guess, right?
Actually, before space shuttle, I was a journalist down there during space shuttles. I was actually there when the day the Challenger exploded, as a journalist.
Covering it as a journalist, yeah.
Yeah, but I moved there in the 60s. My dad happened to go to school in the Philadelphia area with one of the original 7 astronauts, and now I'm forgetting which one it was. But anyway, he got invited to his launch. Was there one named Scott Carpenter or something like that?
You can speak freely.
Anyway,
sure.
He got to go to a launch, and so that really got the whole family involved in being fans of the space program. We paid attention.
I read this crazy story from your Florida days that when you were 16, you're walking on a sidewalk and you happened to witness some guy throw a weird-looking package into a hedge, and then you just went into like full Hardy Boys mode.
Hardy Boys is right. Yeah, I was a big reader of Hardy Boys. I was actually in a car. I was 16, and it was around midnight. I was coming home from a job as a dishwasher when I saw the guy do that. And yeah, curiosity, the street was kind of deserted. I was sitting at a red light. And the reason I actually even saw him do it was I looked around to see I was going to blow through the light because there was nothing happening there. And I looked to my left and saw this guy just as he did that. He ditched something in a hedge. And so when the light changed, I had to go see what it was.
And it turned out to be something, right? It wasn't just like an innocent little package.
No, it was a shirt wrapped around a gun, a handgun. And at that time in my life, I had never held a gun. That was the first time I held a gun. Hey, cheers.
Cheers. Great to meet you.
I see that jar of cherries is half gone, so yeah. I think you know what you're doing here. That's good stuff.
Oh, great. Yeah, we went with Bullet Rye on the bourbon. So then you went to University of Florida, I think, and you read a Raymond Chandler novel. Sorry to sort of run through the bio here, but it's fast. I didn't know all of this about you, and in my research, I was loving the sort of trajectory of how you got to where you are. So it started with Chandler as a book, and then you changed your major in college?
Yeah, I mean, there's a series of things that had to happen. Like I had to look out my window and see that guy hide the gun because that made me start reading crime stories. Uh-huh. It started with me reading the paper to see if they caught the guy. And then that led to true crime, and then that led to crime fiction.
Did they catch the guy?
No. I mean, because many years later, I came back to that police station where I spent the night as a newspaper reporter covering crime, and the same detective who I was more or less assigned to that night, and did lineups and all that, and never identified anybody. He was there. And I stayed in touch with them over the years. They never solved it. It was the gun came from a carjacking. They didn't use that term back then, but it was a carjacking gone bad, and the guy wouldn't give up his car, and he got shot. And then the guy ran off and hid the gun. So I didn't see the violent part. I just saw the hiding of the gun. But yeah, I mean, that split second that happened, and that kind of put me on a path. Then when I got to the University of Florida, I'm in the engineering school with ideas about building houses with my father when I got out, and went to the Monday movie, the dollar movie at the Student Union, and saw The Long Goodbye, Robert Altman's movie from 1973. Loved it. And I'd never read Chandler, even though I was reading a lot of crime fiction, and I got the book, and then I got all of his books. Luckily, he only wrote 7 novels.
What else were you reading, like Dashiell Hammett type stuff?
No, my mom loved crime fiction, but she was mostly kind of a cozy reader, so I was reading kind of soft-boiled crime and then expanding a little bit, but I just had not read Raymond Chandler. I really like contemporary stuff, and I checked him out, and like his last book was written in the 50s, so I said, that's not going to be what I want. But the movie was contemporary, and that drew me back to the novels, and then reading those novels just turned my head and made me say, I want to try to do this.
So after college, you're on the crime beat for some Florida newspapers. You're, I think, a finalist for the Pulitzer early.
Yeah, I spent almost a year on a magazine story on a plane crash, a Delta crash. It crashed in Dallas, but it came from Fort Lauderdale. And it was the crash that made them put wind shear equipment on all planes. So it was a lot of people died, but it was a key moment in aviation history. And I just spent a year on it because it was an unusual story because people survived it. It crashed on landing, and 100-some people died, but there were 29 survivors. So me and 2 other reporters spent a year with them. All 28 out of 29 agreed to open up their lives and let us spend time with them, and wrote a story about what it's like to survive something like that and the changes they went through. And I got to be a finalist, one of 3 finalists for a Pulitzer. And that kind of catapulted me up to another level of journalism. I ended up at the LA Times.
Yeah, off you go to LA. So at this point, your career sounds similar to Carl Hiaasen, I think, who's a Florida guy and journalist on the Florida papers beat. But then you head to LA. The Pulitzer thing happens, and then you started at LA Times.
Yeah.
And were you working on novels at this point? Because your debut is 1992 while you're in LA.
Yeah,
it's the first appearance of Bosch.
When that happened to me at school. By the way, I went to school with Heist, and my mom worked as a teller in a bank that was at the bottom floor of the Hyacinth building, where his dad was a lawyer. So we had all these connections.
He also married his college sweetheart, I think. You both did that, right?
I did, yeah. I don't know about Carl, but yeah. So we've crossed paths. We were competitors in newspapers. Now we're kind of colleagues in the crime fiction world. But So you moved out to LA, and but I was writing fiction all along. So I mean, to me, journalism was a hopeful means to an end.
Mm-hmm. You always knew you wanted to be a writer, so it was like boot camp for writing in a way.
Yeah. So after that Chandler experience, I drove home, and what I thought was going to be a really bad weekend of telling my father I'm not going to build houses with him. I want to take this long shot of trying to write novels, and instead he was very supportive, and he was the one who suggested if you're really talking about crime novels, you might not want to go back and get an English lit major. You might want to get a journalism degree and get a press pass and get into police stations again, because you've only got one night in a police station under your belt. And that proved to be an amazing piece of advice, because that's what I did. And I think, I ended up being a newspaper reporter for 14 years, 12 of them covering crime or courts. Mm-hmm. And everything was built off of that. So it was great advice, and it worked out.
It does work because you write with such authority in all of these scenes. You can tell it's coming from someone who at least is doing a great job of pretending he's been there, but you have great authority on the page.
It's probably what you're saying, pretending I was there. No, but I mean, research is important, and because of my journalism, I had a network. It's turned over because it's been many years, but I had a network of people who did this stuff for a living that that I could go back to. I just felt like, hey, I'm a journalist. What do I have? There's thousands of writers out there writing crime novels, so I decided early on to be the guy who was as accurate as possible. That the reader would almost subconsciously be nodding their head. This must be the way it is.
Yeah. And the first book, Black Echo, was based on true crime.
Yeah, I mean, actually, all of them probably have some truth in it. They come from stories I've been told, or bigger stories that I've, observed on TV and newspapers and stuff like that. But yeah, it was actually the day I started at the LA Times was a Tuesday after Labor Day, and over that weekend, these burglars had spent a weekend drilling. I mean, they'd spent many days drilling underneath the bank, and during the 3-day weekend, they went up into the safe deposit vault and looted them all. They had 3 days to pop them open and take everything. And I wasn't my story because I was the new guy, but my editor said, how would you follow this story? And then later on, I got to sit in on a briefing the LAPD detectives were giving other detectives so they'd know what to look for. Because I thought that these guys are really skilled thieves and they're going to do it again. And that briefing was really the starting point of the novel.
That's crazy. You could do a whole novel on what just happened at the Louvre. You hear about those guys going in. So that was your debut was 1992. I know Harlan Coben, for example, his debut was a few years after yours. And I remember, I don't know if that was a paperback only or not, but I remember him telling me one time he got a $5,000 advance for that book. So I don't know if the economics for you were similar, but I imagine you didn't quit the day job just yet.
No, I mean, I did better than Harlan on my first book, but not by much. But yeah, I kept my job, but I kept my job too long. I mean, I wrote basically my first 3.5 books while still being a full-time. But my full-time job was going into the LAPD, and I was writing.
So you were on the crime beat also for the LA Times.
Yeah, and I was writing about an LAPD detective, so I kind of felt like I got to keep this entree I have. And I was wrong. It's funny because it's the LAPD and the LA Times as institutions really hate each other. And it was hard for me to get information. But I stayed, and then when I finally decided, look, I want to try to become the best novelist I can be. I can't be splitting my attention and my writing. So I quit, and then like magic, it was suddenly I had way better entree because I was no longer a threat.
The OJ was 95, 4?
95. It was like right after I quit.
After you quit.
Yeah, okay. In fact, I took a leave of absence to see if my writing would improve, my novel writing, and I thought it improved a lot. And so I came back to work, and I didn't want to immediately quit on them, but I gave them a long notice, and so they had me train a guy. And about a month after I quit, my wife comes running into my writing room and says, "You got to see this."
The white Bronco.
Yeah, and when he finally gives up, there's a giant knot of reporters, and there in the middle of it is the guy I trained.
No way. Oh, my gosh.
And so the next question is, did you feel good, or did you feel like I need to be there? I felt so good that,
you did not want to be there.
I didn't want to be there anymore. Almost immediately, I realized that's behind me, and I'm focused on being the best novelist I can be.
Well, that sounds like it was the right decision. So the debut of The Lincoln Lawyer is 2005. So this is your first sort of legal novel. And I have to tell you, my wife has been cranking through your books, mostly by audiobook. And she's a former litigator. And she's so impressed at how you have the legal procedure stuff so thoroughly done and accurately done, to your credit for research, because you're not a litigator, not a former litigator. How are you getting the legal stuff so right?
Well, I'm an ex-reporter, so I know how to, ask questions and stuff. And I'm also lucky that my college roommate became a defense attorney. and so a lot of my research was hanging out with him and his law partner. I got the idea about 5 years before the first Lincoln Lawyer book came out, and I went to them and said, can I be a fly on the wall? And this is probably going to take a long time because I'm writing Harry Bosch and all this stuff. So I did. I mean, they agreed, and, I followed them both in court, but I also followed them to the bar after work and hear their stories. And the best research came out of being in a bar, drinking martinis with those guys, than watching them in court or sitting in their office while they're...
That makes so much sense to me, having read the book, because you develop the ear for it, that your dialogue is so good and so believable. It sounds like you sort of picked up the vernacular.
Yeah, I hope so. And, the trick to it is when you're a reporter, you got to record or you got to take notes, so you don't get challenged and stuff. But as a novelist, I think it set people more at ease if I'm not there scribbling notes. Yeah. And so I usually just, have a martini with them. But I did write on the napkin underneath the martini what became the first line of the first Lincoln Lawyer book when one of them uttered it. I said something like, don't you want to have... most lawyers, their clients are 95% of them are guilty of something, And I said, don't you want to have the true blue innocent client? And he said, there's no client as scary as an innocent man. And that's the first line of the book.
Because you're emotionally invested in making sure they don't.
Yeah, and if you mess up, you carry that guilt, you carry it forever. And they both had cases like that. So they were like happy to just have people that had done something wrong, and then their job is just to ameliorate the situation and get them the best outcome they can.
Do you still send chapters, just to make sure, hey, fact check this, or sort of sanity test a few chapters for me to the lawyers?
No, I sent them the whole book.
Oh, they are they're part of your early reading entourage?
Yeah. The day I turn it in to my editor, I give it to them, and I get feedback from them and my editor all around the same time, about 2 weeks later.
Sticking with the same team.
Yeah.
So same guy, basically since 2005, it's been the same core group.
And also I talk
readers.
to them all the time as I'm writing. Like I'll say, I need this to happen. How does that happen in court? This is the outcome I need. What would Mickey Haller say to the judge? What would the judge say? All that kind of stuff. It's like an ongoing process. It's very similar to, I have a lot of detectives not a lot, I have a handful of detectives that help me, and I'm always shooting texts. And
the main lawyer is your college friend, though. So is he in L.A. or he went somewhere else?
No, he's not in L.A.
Florida?
He's in Florida.
Yeah.
He was a federal defense attorney, and the Fed codes and so forth are pretty much standard across all states. But when I need a question about the state laws and codes and all that stuff are different from state to state. So he connected with a guy out here that he runs stuff by.
It's awesome you care about that level of detail, like state to state, because this is why you're the best. Because most of these, many of the thriller books I'm reading these days, like the twists are like 4 per page. You get so twisted around. By the time you get to the end of the book, it's completely unresolvable. They cannot land the book, and I find it frustrating. Yours it's just the pacing, the dialogue, everything's great about it, and then it wraps in a way that works.
Well, thanks. I have learned over the years that you don't want to mess up with lawyers or people who own guns, because you'll hear from them, you got this caliber wrong. This gun doesn't do that. This gun's barrel is only 22.
Do you get a lot of emails? You must get emails from people like, you got this thing wrong. There's no way to get it all right.
Yeah. And lawyers would be the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, and also I've found that the law is, and your wife, I'm sure, can confirm this, that it is interpretative. And so I've had people say, that would never work. And I actually know for a fact it worked, because I'm taking it from real life.
So do you answer with, actually, it did work?
Yeah.
So do you respond to emails in this way? You're sitting up at like 2 a.m. doing this?
Well, what will happen is someone will challenge me on something, and then I'll go to my lawyer and say, all right, what's my answer next time I get Chandler? And he'll send me like the code and the ruling or whatever.
That's awesome.
I don't really take a lot of joy in it, but I do like telling a lawyer, no, you're wrong, and let me refer you to
There's a little joy
United
in that.
States versus, and then and that's always kind of fun. But the gun stuff, if you get it wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah. That's not interpretive. Staying on process for a minute, I read that you listen to jazz when you write.
Not all the time, but a lot of the time, especially if I'm writing cop stuff, Harry Bosch stuff, and I'm writing less and less about him, so I'm probably listening do less and less jazz. But
what is it that gets the brain firing there?
You know, it was something I started when I was writing the first book, and I lived in L.A. near a freeway. It was like 2 apartment complexes down from ours. And I was trying to shut out noise, to tell you the truth. And so but I didn't want something with lyrics because I thought those could intrude into what I'm writing, you know. And so I picked jazz. I also writing about a detective. He was somewhat reminding me of my father, who was a smoker and liked jazz, and a bit of a nod to him. So I just thought it would help drop me into the right mood to write.
Oh, that's great. How about early readers? You mentioned a couple of your legal friends. Any other in your sort of cabal of folks who get an early copy of things?
Yeah, my wife doesn't really like mystery novels and thrillers. She's more of a nonfiction reader, so she's an early reader, and which is a great take. It's like someone who's naive about the genre will come up with some interesting questions, and some are like, oh, that's a standard in the genre or whatever, but some are like, wow, that is a good thought, and I'm going to take that under consideration when I do the rewrite. So she's one, and you know, I send to people, my whole team. My manager, my sister has been running my social communications for years and years, and she's a really good reader. So
that's great. Wait, so one compliment I want to pay you here is that one of my favorite writers for decades has been Michael Crichton, and I love how he jumps from thing to thing, and he's always in the zeitgeist of things. You know, it's Rising Sun when the Japanese economy is taking over, or Disclosure when workplace harassment is, but he's ahead of that as a sort of a national conversation, or Jurassic Park is largely about chaos theory when that's sort of zeitgeisty. And you've managed to do that. You have these characters almost as a vehicle to go do that. You're doing the DNA thing, or here with the Proving Ground, it's generative AI, and you explore these things. With a Crichton novel, I was learning stuff, and I knew he was credible. I knew it was real, and I was sort of getting a mini education through this crazy narrative story. You've taken your characters, and you're able to sort of go out and do things in the way that Crichton appealed to me as well. And this is like, I learned a lot about generative AI. And the 3 M's, I'd never heard the 3 M's before. I thought that was pretty cool.
Well, that's a great compliment. I appreciate that, because Crichton I was a big time reader of Crichton, and I think I learned a lot from him. And it's funny. I mostly write detective stuff, but I am really interested in the advent of technological advances and when government decides to come in or doesn't come in time, to kind of control these new things that can get out of hand. And so over the years, I've done a few of those type of things.
It was very cool. By the way, the 3 M's, I don't know if you made that up. I searched around for it, and I couldn't really find anything, but it's Meta, Microsoft, Musk. Did you make that up, or is that a thing?
Yeah, I made that up.
It's great. That should be a thing. You've made it a thing.
But I shouldn't reveal that. I should say, oh, yeah, that's a thing. Everyone knows that.
Well, now you should. Now it will be a thing. You'll be credited with 3 M's. That's so funny. I was wondering whether or not that was a Connelly original.
See, if you really have a network or what do you call it, like a spider web of real stuff, you can make stuff up and slip it in there, and it all feels real.
All right. How about some geeky mechanical questions? Do you write by hand or you type?
Oh, I type. Yeah.
Okay.
On a laptop. I don't necessarily sit at a desk. In fact, I rarely sit at a desk to write, but I like, it had to do with, I became a journalist in 1980s when I graduated from college.
Back in the days of whiteout and...
Yeah, but no, it was my first job, I worked on a computer. Or I should say, I worked on a typewriter, then had to hand what I did to a lady who entered it into a computer. But I was right at the dawn of the computer age, and pretty soon after I started, I was on a computer. So I know some people like James Elroy writes by hand. I just don't see how that happens.
There are a bunch, actually. So I've had 100 writers on the show, maybe more by now. Nelson DeMille wrote by hand. By Nelson, I don't know if you ever got to know him, but I
met him.
Adored him.
Yeah.
Do you
That's
edit?
funny because his books were really long, and you're telling
So
me they
long.
were handwritten.
He said it was a number 1 pencil, not a number 2, because it was softer, and his hand didn't exhaust his hand as quickly with the softer lead of a number 1 pencil. So did you edit as you go, or do you sprint to the finish and then come back and edit?
It's a little bit of both. I start every morning by printing out what I did the day before, marking it up, and then entering the changes. So I kind of build in a rewrite.
And that gets you warmed up to then write new material?
And then it's kind of like the battering ram, like you pull back and then go forward with momentum. And so that really helps me get going. That doesn't take a long time, maybe an hour or 2 in the morning, and then you're plowing new ground.
So are you sort of 9 to 1 p.m.?
No, I'm more like a 5 to lunchtime type guy. If I can do that, a perfect time for me to start writing is while it's still dark in the morning and kind of seeing the sun come up through the windows of my office.
Office is in the home or out of the home?
In home.
Yeah. All right, and the big question for mystery thriller: do you outline or make it up? Like, do you know the ending and some of the key twists, or do you just sort of not know what happens on the next page, even yourself?
I don't outline, but I usually don't start a book till I know, what's happening in the first chapter and what's going to happen in the last chapter, and then the stuff in the middle is kind of free form.
Freeform. That's the hard part. This is another one where there are so many different kinds. All the names I mentioned you probably know personally, but Lee Child says he has no outline. Even he doesn't know what's going to happen next, and he feels that brings more energy to it. And then other people are, avid outliners, and they kind of know the whole thing.
I'm like a big reader of writerly quotes, and I remember I read one from Hemingway that just stuck with me, and it was, if you outline your books, you'll know just where they're going, and so will your reader. And I think there's some truth to that.
That's interesting. By the way, I just quoted you because I read one of your lines. Michael Lewis was in a week ago or so, and we were talking about screenplays, and he's had a number of book to film, but not Liar's Poker, which is one of his bigger sellers. But anyway, I quoted your line of saying, if you take their money, it's their turn to tell the story.
Right.
Is that anyway? That line's out there attributed to you. So
it shouldn't be. I think that's an old line from somebody. I think it might have been James Lee Burke. Who told me that.
Al Fair's father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about some book to film success, because you had a novel, Bloodwork, a 1997 book, but turned into a Clint Eastwood film in 2002. Did you get to hang out with Clint Eastwood a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. He's an interesting guy. He was always good to his word of what he said to me. And the first time I met him, he had just optioned the book. I got invited to meet him over there at Warner Brothers, where in the middle of this big campus studio, there's a house, like a ranch house, and that's his office. It was like really weird, but anyway,
like a multi-room house, and
it was like like from a residence or something. But anyway, he was in there, and the entire time we met, he was sitting at a piano playing, like just noodling on a piano while talking to me.
That's a little odd.
I thought it was kind of neat, though, but yeah. So, I don't know whether he was nervous.
It was not done in like a dismissive way. It feels like
no. It was just, I don't know. I think it was his way of being comfortable, and he kind of laid out. He goes, "You're not going to hear from me for 5 years," and that was exactly right. 5 years later,
so he actually read the 97 book in 97.
Yeah,
and took 5 years to get it. That's amazing.
And they optioned it back then, and then he came back. About almost 5 years later, I got the script in the mail, and I thought he was just being nice to me, and I didn't respond. I read it, and I had some thoughts on it, but I didn't. And then my phone rang, and it was him saying, like, "I didn't hear from you about the script." And I was like really flustered, saying, "Well, I didn't think you really wanted to hear from me." But then we talked about it, and I told him some stuff I wouldn't have done in the script and so forth, and he was kind of point by point telling me why he made those changes or why he told the screenwriter.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. But it was interesting.
That he cared for your opinion and felt like he had to sort of run that by.
Yeah, he made a couple of smaller changes based on my objections, but not the big ones I had. And I think that resulted, it's funny, TV and movies are so different in terms of how they treat the original writers. And so when I got invited to watch filming, I quickly noticed that on all the days I was invited, there was not a whole lot of dialogue. It was all like car chases and shooting and stuff like that, which was exciting to see. But I never saw like a scene, a dramatic scene, and I think they didn't want me around at those points.
It is so. Actually, let me. I'll save this question for a follow up to the next question. Lincoln Lawyer. There's obviously a movie, but focusing more on the TV shows as well. Lincoln Lawyer went CBS into Netflix, and Bosch has been with Amazon. Were there big differences in working with Netflix versus Amazon?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Amazon jealously guards their data, and Netflix shares everything.
In terms of how many viewers?
Viewers, they all dig really deep into stuff like what they call acquisition viewers, people who sign up. Somehow they can tell people who sign up just to watch your show.
Oh, wow, that's a good stat.
Acquisition viewers is one of their big things. Retention, rate of completion, that like your percentage of people who start the show that go all the way to the 10th episode and finish. And you get all that from Netflix, and you get very little from Amazon. One time I got and it's always a battle because I've been involved with them for over 10 years. And I remember one time me and the main producer kind of were so frustrated. We said, how come we never get anything? You keep renewing us so we know we're a hit, but we don't know whether we're a big hit or a small hit or where we stand. And he sent us in a computer a graph, and it was just the L and then like a line going up, but there was nothing written anywhere. So it didn't say like season to season you've been going up or anything. It was like pretty much useless. So anyway, my producer has that framed on his wall.
As the author of the novel, are the economics very different between the streamers or between not to like have you name things, but or between a feature film? Like what works best for a book in terms of an expression on big or small screen?
It's weird. I think moviegoers are more readers. So when I've had 2 movies, and they really impacted book sales. And I know the TV shows sell books, but it's much smaller and it's almost anecdotal. I can't tell you as much, but like when the Lincoln Lawyer movie came out, I think there were 4 Lincoln Lawyer books out at that time, and one by one they climbed the charts like in paperback. First the one the movie is based on hit number 1 on the paperback list, then the second book hit it, and then the third, and it went right down the line. And you could just definitely see the impact of a movie, or maybe it was an impact of Matthew McConaughey. I don't really know.
That's a handsome mug to throw on the book cover.
And, and TV shows, I'm sure, I mean, it's all anecdotal. I do book signings and people say, I discovered you through the show or whatever. So it has a positive impact, but I don't think it's as big as a film.
And you're making money from the show, from the streamers, for example, but you're making more from the book sales than you are from, an Amazon paycheck.
Yeah, altogether, yeah.
I think that sounds consistent to me, like in talking to someone like Lee Child, who Reacher has had both a show and a movie expression of it. And, I don't know how the Reacher fan base felt about Tom Cruise, but I think Lee was feeling pretty good about the book sales with Tom Cruise on there. Particularly, Tom Cruise was such a big star out in like China that he like all of a sudden his book sales in Asia went through the roof.
Yeah, I mean, and they were all new readers, so they didn't know the guy in the book is 6'9" or whatever. Right. I think the dyed-in-the-wool people were somewhat upset. Yeah. But that's what happens. You get new readers, and then hopefully you keep them in your fold.
How about writing for TV or film? Have you done much of that?
Yeah, I've done it, but I'm the first to say I'm not good at it, and I try to get out of it, but a lot of times they want me to write stuff like, I wrote the last episode of the Bosch show. They just wanted me to do it.
So are you in all the writers' rooms for each episode, or are you just sort of
I visit them. I'm not anywhere full time because, I always say, hey, I'm a book writer. And also it is quite a challenge. I'm used to writing books where you're inside, your characters' heads. Harry Bosch books are third person, but you know what he's thinking. The Lincoln Lawyer books are first person even. And so it's very hard to lose that interior thought when you write a script, because it's only about what they say and what they do. There's no internal thought. And I'm the first to say I haven't been able to jump that chasm and do it well. So most of the scripts I write, I acknowledge are completely rewritten, by the showrunners and so forth.
I think Dennis Lehane might be one of your buddies, and you guys sort of came up in that same class of like early mid-90s debut writers. He's made that leap from the chasm, and he was telling me, he was on the show a couple of years ago, and he was saying that he finds it so much, he's like, I could sit at the 50-yard line of a football game and write a pilot for a TV show, whereas the novel is like a much more intense, difficult grind.
He shouldn't
for me,
have probably said that on a show, but I get the point,
But he's sort of, it is very hard for people to do. But then, like Scott Turow was on, he's like, I can't do the TV thing. I can do the book thing, not the TV thing, And
I think it goes the other way too. I mean, because I know a lot of people who write for TV and screen, and a lot of them have a hard time when they attempt to write a novel.
Yeah, it seems like a very different. There's some overlap. Like the Venn diagram is a bit there, but it's a different skill set in some ways. All right, we are on to the lightning round with Michael Connelly. Coming down the home stretch. Take one more sip here.
I'm going to forget my answers.
I have, as a reveal to the audience, I have started giving these questions out in advance. I didn't used to do that. And then I got feedback from one writer. It's like, dude, you've got to give these in advance. Like I got in the elevator and I thought of 3 better stories for that question if you had just given me a day with it. So first question, your favorite book as a kid?
To Kill a Mockingbird.
That's a great one.
Kid being how old? Like I read that when I was 13.
That's perfect. Whatever. Yeah, I mean, however you want to take it. Book or books reading now?
That was the one question that gave me hesitation, because I just turned in a book and that was all consuming. But I did, as soon as I turned it in last week, I started reading, and I already read this book, but and I'm going to forget the author's name. I always do this. But Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow was a book that really affected me when I read it maybe 2-3 years ago when it was out. And it's got a big LA part to it, but it's also
fiction.
And so I just started reading again because it was there.
Actually, I meant to ask you this earlier in the process phase, but when you're in that mode of putting a few pages on the pile every day, what will you read, if anything? Like, would you read another crime thriller, or do you kind of stay away from that when you're drafting?
I would like to stay away from it. Sometimes forces of nature make you read something because you told somebody you would or whatever. But just because I'm a writer, it doesn't mean I'm a big reader. And so I would like to, a perfect world for me, especially when I'm in like what I call the critical mass. When I'm in the last third of a book, I don't want to read anything. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to do anything. I just want to have this swirling around my head. And so there's big sections of my year, if you will, where I'm not reading anything. And I think people are like shocked by that but you're an author. But you got to be, you got to keep what you're doing the most sacred thing.
Yeah. That sort of frenzied state of finishing up the last chapter of the book, is that a month or is that weeks? Some people are in the fever dream of it's like 5 all-nighters in a row and they'd crush it.
No, I mean, it's longer than that. I mean, to me, it's like climbing a mountain or a roof. You're going up, and at some point you're going down, and you have all this momentum. And that's when you don't want anything to intrude, and you sit quietly at dinner. I remember there's a story about Thurber having dinner with his family, and his daughter says to her mom, "Is Dad sick?" And she says, "No, he's writing." And that's what you're doing. You're sitting there at dinner, but you're thinking about
your
what
brain
you're writing.
Is, you're only half present in the room because the other half's drafting. Least attended book event ever.
You had to bring that up. I one time had a book signing. This would have been for my book called The Poet, which was 5 books in after 92. So it was like 96 or so. And I had a book signing on a Saturday afternoon in Lexington, Kentucky, and the University of Kentucky basketball team was playing. So not a single person was in the store, and the people who worked there went into the back room to watch the basketball game, and I was just sitting at a table.
Oh, not even an employee?
No, normally when you have a bad signing, an employee takes pity on you and sits with you or talks to you. Nothing. And so after about 20 minutes, I looked around and realized they're all back there to listen. I can hear the game. And so I just walked out, and no one ever said anything. They didn't complain to my publisher. I never heard anything again.
That is the worst one I've ever heard, actually, because everyone, we've had everyone who's sold, 200 million books on here, you started out as not a star, and so everyone has, a story to that question, and the famous answer is a 0 is better than a 1 because you can just leave. You don't have to give a thing to one person. But I've never heard, not even the employees were around.
Yeah, when you get abandoned by the employees, that's the all-time low.
Well, Kentucky, they take their basketball very seriously.
By the way, that bookstore went out of business.
Oh, they deserve it. Your favorite jazz musician?
I'm not vindictive.
No, exactly. No joy in that. It's a little joy in some of the legal responses, but not in that. Favorite jazz musician?
Definitely Frank Morgan.
All right. Was that one of your dad's?
No, it was a saxophone player who I got to know a little bit before he passed. And I had this, I had told my wife, I'm writing this book about this guy who listens to jazz. And she brought in this story about Frank Morgan, who went 27 years between his first and second album because he spent them all in prison because he was heroin addicted and he committed crimes to support it. And it was about his second album, 28 years later, that was really good. And then I look, and he's playing that night in L.A., and I went to see him play. And he was playing in a club called the Catalina 4 nights, and I went to 3 of them.
Wow.
And he became Harry Bosch's favorite musician, and he was mine as well.
Have you listened to him while you write sometimes?
Oh, all the time, yeah. He has a song called Lullaby that I used to play every morning, like Raising the Flag. I'd play it before I started writing. And I don't do it as much anymore, but I also made a documentary about him.
Yeah. All right, favorite few recent TV shows that do not include one of your characters?
Okay, I'm sorry, when I get asked questions like that, easy answers get blown out of my head, but Slow Horses. I couldn't think of the Slow Horses. I think is the best thing on TV, and the books are fantastic. I don't know if you read the books; they're just great.
I haven't read the books yet, but I did. It was another author, Leigh Bardugo, if you know her. She had recommended Slow Horses a little while ago, so I watched it on her recommendation, and it's amazing. I love it. I think I've watched seasons 1 and 2, but there might be another one.
There's actually 4 out now, but because they do them fast, they shoot 2 at a time, 2 seasons at a time. So there's 4 6-episode seasons. Mick Herron is the author. I sort of know him from stuff I've done over in England. And the show is very, very loyal to the books, and the books are really good. And that's a rare thing when you can get the same kind of joy and fulfillment from a book as you get from a TV show, and vice versa.
Do you feel like how loyal do you feel the shows are to your books?
Very much so. I mean, in terms of the main characters, I mean, my books are very much centered on the main character, and on TV, you got to expand everybody in the storytelling. So, like on Bosch, his partner became a big part, and I loved what they did with him, but that's not from the books. Same thing with Ballard, same thing with Lincoln Lawyer. I mean, Lorna, who's his manager, is not a big part of the books, and she's a huge part of the TV show.
I thought for both the main show, Lincoln Lawyer and Bosch, the casting of the main character has been great. I thought they did a nice job with that.
Yeah, very good. I couldn't say anything better. Those guys have been really good, and Maggie Q as Ballard has been fantastic. I mean, a good example is in there's 20-some Bosch books. These 2 internal affairs guys, nicknamed Crate and Barrel, were in one book, and then they're in 10 seasons of the show as fellow detectives, and they're fantastic. And I get credit for that, but the reality is that was made up by the writers and the showrunners and all that.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're in the writer's room as some of this is happening. You're seeing what connected with some of these other writers and get to talk about that, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, there was, when the showrunner, Eric Overmyer, said that, your books are pretty serious and on TV we need some humor. So I want to take these two internal affairs guys you called Crate and Barrel and make them detectives, and they're going to be the comedic relief we need in the dark stories we're going to tell. And it was a great idea and fantastic execution.
Oh, that's great.
And who gets credit? Me.
Best feature film of a, either a legal or crime drama ever.
The Verdict with
Paul Newman.
Paul Newman, yeah. David Mamet. Just really good. What a great story about redemption and things and all these things that really strike nerves in everybody.
All right, before we get to the last question, The Proving Ground by Michael Connelly gets into generative AI and all the fraught perils with that. There's a shooting. It's very you wrote this before, some of the more sort of ripped out of the headline stories going on, but it's an important story to read now. And another example of how, for me, with the Michael Crichton books, fiction can tell a story sometimes in a way that's more indelible and more important even than nonfiction. It stays with you. The last question for Michael Connelly, one piece of advice for the audience.
And so it's just the audience, not writers?
Well, it's one of those things where you kind of take it anyway. If you want to, many listeners of this show are either writers or aspiring writers. So if you have advice that way, that'd be great.
I'll tell you what, this transcends all that. I mean, I'm not trying to act like a big way, but Harry Bosch's advice, everybody counts or nobody counts. You can also take that into your writing, that every character counts. Or none of them will. And, I learned that from Kurt Vonnegut. Again, I'm a big guy who loves quotes. And he was asked, what's the best piece of advice you can give a writer? You probably have said this on the show. But anyway, he said, make sure everybody on every page wants something, even if it's only a glass of water. And I think that's the key to writing fiction.
I'd never heard of that before. That sounds great.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting how some small moment or some small character can add so much value to the book. Michael, what a pleasure. This was so great. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me on and for the old-fashioned.
My pleasure.
Very good. Well done.
Thanks.